Hi, welcome back to our class. In our last video, we have discussed IPO price discovery through book building, where investors provide information about their demands. Investment banks gather the demands and set the issuing price below the market clear price. Because IPO are usually underpriced, it is of particular interest to discuss who gets the shares. In a traditional book building, investment banks have allotment rights and decide who gets the shares. Although regulators and smaller investors may not feel comfortable about investment banks allocating shares to their preferred buy-side clients, the allocation right of investment banks is a market way to allocate shares and is very important for price discovery of book building. To encourage clients to provide more information during their bids, clients who put in limits or step orders early tend to receive higher allocations on average. According to the study by Connelly and Goldrich in 2001, bids that most influence the issue price are favored in the allocation of shares. So underwriters tend to favor buy-side clients who provide the most accurate indications of interest and reward them with higher allocations. This allocation method motivates buy-side investors to do research about pricing and accurately review their pricing demands during the bidding process. While book building is limited to institutional and wealthy clients of investment banks, another possible way to sell shares to a wider range of investors is Dutch auction. A Dutch auction allows anyone to bid, thus gives all investors equal opportunity to participate. In a Dutch auction, investors list the number of shares they want and the price at which they are willing to pay. The price provided will be assigned from the highest to the lowest, and a final market price is established at which all shares available for sale can be sold. A point to note is that all bidders get the same final market price despite their bidding price. Thus, a Dutch auction is also known as a non-discriminatory auction. When Google went public in 2004, it chose the more democratic Dutch auction, and all types of investors are invited to submit their orders through the internet. The offering price would be set at which the shares could be sold out. A total of 19.6 million shares were issued, and the final price of Google is $85. When secondary market trading started, the price of Google closed at $100.34 on its first day of trading, representing an 18% increase in its price. Investment bankers and institutional investors do not quite like the idea of Dutch auction. A Dutch auction decreases the role of investment banks in pricing and allotment. It also leads to lower fees for investment banks. For institutional investors, they are treated on equal basis with individual investors in a Dutch auction. Firstly, there is low targeted information exchange towards the institutional investors to help them do profound research on pricing. Next, institutional investors cannot enjoy the favorable allotment treatment from investment banks as in a traditional IPO. For example, during Google Roadshow, institutional investors complained that Google did not tell them much about how the raised money would be used. To date, a traditional book building is still the dominant way to IPO in the US. In China, the IPO market is under the guidance of an approval-based system. An IPO follows a process similar to what we have discussed, but there are some differences worth noticing. Pricing and allotment of new shares in China is very different from a typical US book building. We will spend the next few minutes to discuss IPO pricing and allotment in the market of China. There are two types of public market buyers in the IPO market of China: online investors and offline investors. Online investors are largely comprised of individual investors. Offline investors include institutional investors and high-net-worth investors. Stock issuance price is determined by an issuer and its underwriter through inquiries with offline investors. To encourage accurate bidding in the process of an inquiry, an issuer and its lead underwriter are required to exclude no less than 10% of the highest bids, and the issue price will be determined based on the remaining bids. Online investors do not participate in price inquiries. Despite the inquiry efforts, the IPO market of China is characterized with extremely high level of underpricing. A 2008 study by reader of the University of Florida suggests an average IPO return of more than 115% for China, while it is around 20% for US. A possible reason of IPO underpricing in China is that under the current approval-based system, authorities tend to reject IPOs that are priced higher than 23 times its EPS. This unspoken rule tends to act as a price ceiling that limits the price at which shares can be issued. After issuing price is determined through inquiry, an IPO goes into the stage of allotment. Investment banks do not have allotment rights in China as opposed to a US book building. Its allotment mechanism includes two parts: online placement to smaller investors and offline placement to institutional investors who provide successful bids in the inquiry process. Investors holding certain market capitalizations can subscribe for placement online. Online placement is executed through a lottery system, so it is random who gets an allotment. In an offline allotment, institutional investors get allotment proportional to the amount of shares they bid. Offline investors tend to bid the maximum number of shares each investor can subscribe. Okay, we have discussed the pricing and the allotment of IPO. Thanks for watching. In the next video, we will talk about greenshoe option.